The wind howled across the barren plains of Solara Prime, a soft violet world known more for its endless storms than for anything beautiful. But in the hidden corners of its ruins, life still found a way to flicker. Nestled beneath the twisted remains of a forgotten dome, a small girl with shimmering teal skin stared up at the stars. Beside her sat a human man, his boots caked in red sand, his jacket torn, his breath steady. His name was Elian Mercer. To the rest of the galaxy, he was a soldier turned scavenger, nothing special. But to the little alien girl he had rescued from a crashed transport weeks ago, he was everything. Her name was Kaeli. She didn't speak much. Her people, the Ilrea, were a quiet and deeply spiritual race. When the raiders attacked her convoy, she was the only one left breathing. And Elian, wandering through the wreckage days later, had found her clutching a broken charm made of starlight crystal. She had not let go of it since. They sat together every evening now, watching the storms pass, waiting for a ship that might never come. "You'll go back someday," Elian said, his voice low but warm. "When you're older, when your people find you again." Kaeli looked at him, her large silver eyes reflecting the firelight. "And you?" she asked softly, her voice trembling like wind through crystal. Elian smiled, brushing sand from his cheek. "Me? I'll probably still be here, drinking stale water and fixing broken radios." She tilted her head. "Then I will come back. When I grow tall like you," he chuckled, "you'll forget me." She narrowed her eyes. "I won't." Elian leaned back, eyes scanning the stars. They felt cold tonight, endless and silent. "Fine," he said. "If you remember me, and if you still want to, I'll marry you." There was no laughter in his voice, just the calm acceptance of a man trying to offer comfort. He didn't expect her to understand what marriage was. He just wanted her to feel safe, to believe that the future could still be good. Kaeli blinked. "Promise?" "Promise," Elian said, sealing it with a pinky finger held out like a child. She linked hers with his, and something in the air shifted. For a second, the howling wind fell silent. Years passed. In the outer reaches of the Janari Alliance, whispers began to circulate. Strange ships were seen, silver, smooth, shaped like wings of living flame. They moved without noise. They carried no banners. But one thing was clear. They were looking for something or someone. The name Earthborn kept coming up in intercepted transmissions. But no one knew why. Back on Solara Prime, the wind still howled. The dome had collapsed long ago. The scavengers were gone, and the man named Elian Mercer was nothing but dust in forgotten records. Or so they thought, until one morning, as the twin suns rose, a shadow fell across the broken land. A ship descended, unlike anything seen before, and when the ramp lowered, the first to step out was no longer a little girl. She was tall now, strong, wearing a cloak woven from star thread with the mark of High Priestess on her forehead. Behind her stood two more warriors, silent and tall. She knelt in the dust, touched the ground with reverence, and whispered, "I have returned, and I am not alone." What followed would shake the balance of power in the galaxy, but it all began here, with a joke, a promise, and a human no one ever took seriously. The air around the ancient dome shimmered with heat and memory. Kaeli stood still, her boots pressing gently into the same red dust where she once sat as a child. But now she was no longer the frightened girl hiding behind broken metal and fear. She was Kaeli of the Ilrea, the voice of the Flame Temple, the dream keeper of her people. But to herself, in this place, she was just a girl who had once promised to return. "His signal is not here," said one of the armored warriors behind her. His voice was soft but firm, shaped by the discipline of the Starward Guards. Kaeli did not move. Her eyes, silver and glowing faintly with inner light, were fixed on a broken piece of metal jutting from the sand. It was part of the old fire pit. She remembered Elian placing stones around it carefully, telling stories of Earth, of oceans and forests, of music. He left no trace, said the second guard, scanning the ruins with a glowing device. If he was here, time has swallowed. All Kaeli finally spoke. The dust remembers. They looked at her with confusion, but said nothing. Kaeli knelt and ran her fingers across the sand. Slowly, carefully, she placed a small orb, smooth and glowing pale blue, on the ground. It hummed with quiet energy, then rose and began to spin. Images flickered above it. A younger version of Kaeli, laughing, holding a broken charm. Elian beside her, smiling, scarred, tired but alive. The memory had been hidden in the charm all these years. He was real, she whispered. The guards lowered their heads. We need to find him, she said. But why? The first guard asked. So much time has passed. You are now bonded to the Il Rhea flame. You are a leader. You could have anyone. Why search for a human who is likely dead? Kaeli stood tall. Because he didn't laugh when I said I'd return. Because when I was weak, he gave me strength. When I had nothing, he gave me hope. And when the galaxy would have thrown me away, he looked me in the eye and made a promise. Her voice trembled, but not with fear, with fire. I promised too. Far across the stars, in a spaceport carved into the bones of a moon-sized asteroid, a man sat in a dim bar. He had a beard now. His hair had silver in it, and his jacket was patched with decades of wear. Elian Mercer was still alive. He stared into his drink, a dull yellow liquid that smelled like machine oil. But he didn't care. Someone sat beside him. A robot courier. Message, it said, handing him a crystal chip. Elian didn't take it. Not today, he muttered. I'm done with messages. This one is from Solara Prime, the robot said. A girl, Il Rhea. Elian froze. The robot placed the chip on the counter and left. For a long moment, he said nothing. His hand reached out slowly. Fingers touched the chip. He hesitated. Then he sighed and slid it into the reader. Kaeli single quotes as voice came through. Older now, but still gentle. I've come back, Elian. Just like I said. If you're still out there, please come find me, because I've found something too. And it's not just about us anymore. It's bigger. It's dangerous. And I think they're watching. Elian's heart pounded. For the first time in years, he felt something more than survival. He felt the pull of something real. He stood up, tossed a few credits on the counter, and walked out. Outside, in the hangar, sat a battered ship. It looked like a relic. But inside, the engines were awake. The stars were calling, and he was going to answer. The old ship shook as it broke atmosphere, groaning like it hadn't tasted the sky in a decade. And maybe it hadn't. Elian sat in the pilot seat, eyes sharp, hands steady, but his chest tight. He stared out the viewport, watching Solara Prime grow larger, its twin suns casting gold light over the surface. It looked smaller than he remembered, quieter, like it was waiting for something. He hadn't said her name aloud in years. Kaeli. Back then, she was just a scared girl with broken bones and a strange accent. Now she was reaching across the galaxy, and her voice still had that same steady hope. He wasn't sure if it scared him or gave him a reason to breathe again. A soft beeping pulled him from his thoughts. The console lit up. Incoming transmission. He opened it. Identification required, said a voice, crisp and formal. It didn't sound like Kaeli. Elian Mercer, he said. Civilian transport class. No cargo. Responding to a private beacon. There was a pause. Then a reply came, this time from her. You really came. He smiled faintly. You really remembered. She laughed, but it was short, tired, different. We don't have much time, Kaeli said. I'll explain when you land. There's something you need to see. The landing site was not the ruined dome where they had made their promise. It was something new. Hidden in the valley behind it, carved into stone, was a small temple. Ilrea. Markings glowed along its walls, symbols of peace, light, and memory. It was quiet. Sacred. Elian stepped out of the ship. The sun hit his face. He looked older now, more worn, but his eyes still searched like they used to. Kaeli waited at the entrance. When he saw her, his breath caught. She stood tall, her cloak moving in the warm breeze, her silver eyes glowing faintly beneath a ceremonial crown. But the look she gave him, it wasn't royal. It wasn't holy. It was just Kaeli. As if no years had passed. You haven't aged a day, he said. You've aged enough for both of us, she replied gently. They stood in silence. For a moment, then she reached out, and he took her hand, inside the temple. She showed him everything. A room deep underground. Glowing walls filled with symbols neither human nor Ilrea. A console in the center, ancient, humming, alive. When Elian touched it, the symbol shifted, changed, responded. We found this place only after I returned, Kaeli said. Felt something calling me here. Like it was buried deep in my memory. Deeper than I understood. Elian frowned. You think you've been here before? She nodded. I think we both have. He stepped back. What does that mean? Kaeli looked down. Then she raised her eyes to meet his. You said you would marry me one day. But what if the reason we met wasn't chance? What if this place knew? What if we were supposed to find each other? Elian felt a chill move through his spine. Not fear, not confusion. Something older. And what if someone else knew too? She added, someone who doesn't want us to remember. Outside the temple, in the orbit above Solara Prime, a black ship appeared. No signals, no lights, no name. It watched and waited. The wind shifted outside the temple. The sky dimmed for just a second, barely enough to notice, but Kaeli felt it. Not with her eyes, but with something deeper. Something woven into her bones. She turned quickly. They're here. Elian looked at her, confused. Who? The ones who erased the past. The ones who think this place should stay buried. Her voice was calm, but her fingers trembled slightly as they hovered over the ancient console. The symbols on the walls pulsed faster, reacting to the shift in the air. A strange hum filled the chamber, a low, rhythmic sound like the beating of a giant heart deep beneath the stone. The air grew warmer. Elian stepped beside her. Why would they care about this place now? Kaeli glanced at him. Because it remembered you. And it responded to your touch. Above them, in the black ship, something stirred. It was not crude in the usual sense. There were no pilots, no chatter, no warmth. Just a cold intelligence. Its watchers, once called the Velen, were neither machine nor life. They existed to erase forbidden truths. And the moment Elian's presence lit the ancient system, the Velen knew the human had triggered something that should have stayed forgotten. They began to descend inside the temple. Kaeli pulled a small sphere from her cloak, a communication stone bonded to her personal guard. She whispered one word, prepare. Across the nearby hills, Ilrea, warriors hidden in deep outposts activated their cloaked defense systems. Energy fields shimmered to life. Bladed staves unfolded. Shields crackled around their armor. They did not question the order. They had sworn loyalty to Kaeli. And Kaeli had placed her trust in one man, one human. Elian stared at the swirling images above the console. They moved like memories, like dreams only half formed. Some showed planets he had never seen. Others showed himself, and Kaeli only. It wasn't him, not exactly. It was a version of him. Younger, dressed in strange armor, holding Kelly's hand as if they were equals in a war not yet fought. "That's not me," he said quietly. "It is," Kelly whispered. "Or it was. Or will be." He looked at her. "Are you saying we've done this before?" Kelly nodded slowly. "This place isn't just ancient. It exists outside of time the way we understand it. When you made that promise to me all those years ago, it was more than just words." It echoed backward, forward. The temple heard it. The Watchers did too. Elian backed away. "Kelly, this is bigger than you or me. I was just a scavenger. I don't have special blood or powers or destiny." Kelly stepped forward. "But you do have something they fear. What's that? Choice?" Before he could respond, the ground rumbled. Lights flickered. A pulse of black energy struck the hillside above the temple. The first attack had begun. Kaeli turned. Her eyes glowed brighter. "Get to the inner chamber," she said. "There's something in there you need to see." Elian ran, his boots echoing down the corridor as another blast shook the stone. Kelly faced the temple door. Her guards were already waiting outside, weapons drawn, but above them, the black ship opened, and what fell from it was not a machine. It was a figure cloaked in darkness, floating down like a shadow torn from the edge of the universe. It had no face, only a mask of silver. Kaeli stared up at it. Her heart beat faster, not from fear but from recognition. "You," she said quietly, "you were there the day he left." The figure raised its hand, but Kelly didn't flinch. "You won't stop this," she said. Then she raised her hand in return, and the temple blazed with light. Beneath the temple, Elian reached the inner chamber, and what he saw waiting in the center stopped him cold. A sarcophagus. With his name etched into the side. Elian stared at the sarcophagus. His name, Elian Mercer, was carved into the ancient metal, like it had been waiting for centuries. The letters shimmered faintly, pulsing with the same strange light that danced across the temple walls. His breath caught. His fingers trembled as he reached out to touch the surface. It was warm, humming, alive. "This isn't possible," he whispered. "I'm not dead." But deep inside, something cracked like a door left slightly open. Memories that weren't his began to drift into his mind. Sounds, voices, pain, a battlefield of fire. Kelly's face, older, stained with tears, screaming his name as he bled out beneath alien skies. No, not his memory. But it felt real. He staggered back, gasping. Behind him, a voice spoke. "You died. Once." He turned fast. Kelly stood in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes wide with sorrow. "What is this?" he asked. She stepped closer. This chamber was hidden from everyone. Even the council feared it. Only those marked by the temple can enter. And you, your blood, your presence, it woke it. Elian's voice cracked. "I don't understand." Kelly reached into a pocket in her robe and pulled out a thin crystal thread. She handed it to him. "Place it in the panel." He did. The air shifted. A hologram formed. It was him, standing on a field of stars, in armor unlike anything human made. Beside him stood Kelly, older, battle-worn, her face fierce. They were surrounded. Voices shouted. Lights flashed. The sound of weapons echoed. Then came the moment. He turned to her. "We can't let them have it." Kelly shook her head. "You'll die." "Then I die," he said. He kissed her forehead. And then he ran into the enemy lines alone, drawing the Velen away from her. The vision ended with a scream and a flash of white. Elian stood frozen. What did I see?" Kelly's voice was barely a whisper. "Your last life, the final battle. You gave yourself up to buy me time. And the temple, it remembered. It took part of you, kept it here, waiting for your soul to return." Elian's Knees buckled. He sat on the cold floor, trying to breathe. So what am I now? He asked. A ghost? A clone? Kaeli knelt beside him. You're Elian Mercer. You're the man who gave me hope when I had nothing. The man who said he'd marry a scared little girl just to make her smile. You're not a ghost. You, but the temple brought you back. Not by force, by choice. Elian stared at her. Your promise, she said softly, was real. A loud explosion shook the chamber. Dust fell from the ceiling. Outside. Screams echoed through the valley. Kaeli stood. They're breaking through. Elian looked at the sarcophagus one more time. Then he stood too. Then let's give them something they don't expect. Above. The dark figure hovered before the temple gates. Its voice echoed in a language long forgotten, sending waves of dread through the air. Elria guards fought to hold the line, but they were failing. Even their strongest shields could not hold. Forever. Kaeli emerged from the entrance. The figure turned toward her. You cannot break the cycle, it said. He was meant to die. Kaeli raised her chin. Then why is he standing beside me? Elian stepped out of the shadows, no longer the scavenger. Something about him had changed. His eyes were sharper, his stance firmer. And beneath his skin, the ancient glow of the temple pulsed, just faint, but undeniable. The figure paused. Kaeli smiled. You feared him then. You fear him now. The temple chose, Elian said, and this time I choose too. A blast of light erupted from behind them. The temple itself was waking. And it remembered everything. The ground beneath the temple cracked open as light surged upward, wrapping around Elian and Kaeli like a living current. The symbols on the stone glowed with new life, ancient and wild. The Watchers had come to silence truth, to erase memory, but the temple was no longer silent. It had awakened. And it was angry. The dark figure in the sky paused mid-flight. For the first time, it recoiled. Not from weapons. Not from force, but from memory itself. It had erased 1,000 civilizations, rewritten time, buried heroes, but it had never faced one who returned. Elian stepped forward, his feet steady on the crumbling stone. Kaeli followed, the wind pulling at her cloak, her hand glowing with the energy of the flame mark that now pulsed across her chest. Behind them, the Ilrea warriors regrouped. Those who had fallen stood again, their wounds healing as the temple's light reached them. Even the dying found breath once more. The sacred power of the place flowed through every living soul willing to remember what had been lost. Elian looked up at the figure. You know me now, don't you? He called. The figure's voice, once sharp and hollow, now trembled. You were removed, your thread cut, your name erased. This is ... impossible. Then maybe, Elian said with fire in his voice, I was never just a name. He raised his hand, and the sarcophagus deep within the temple answered. Its surface split open, not with death, but with light. A weapon formed from within it, shaped not by metal, but by memory. A sword of crystallized time. He took it in his hand. It felt like he had never let go. Kaeli stepped beside him. We stand together, just like before. No, Elian said, glancing at her. This time, we win. The battle erupted again, but it was no longer the same fight. The Watchers, beings who had once silenced entire species, found their shadows torn apart by a blade they could not touch. Elian moved through them like a storm. Every slash of the crystal sword shattered their cloaking, their silence, their lies. They screamed not from pain, but from being seen. Kaeli raised her arms and chanted the words of the Ilrea ancestors. The temple responded with waves of power that flowed into her allies. Forgotten courage surged into their bones. The earth trembled not in fear, but in awakening. Deep inside the black ship, one of the Velen watched the scene in stillness. He remembers, it said to the others. The loop is broken. Then the flame must be extinguished before it. Spreads, said another. It is too late, said the first. She returned, and he followed. The pattern cannot hold. On the battlefield, Elian stood surrounded. The Watchers tried again and again to bring him down, but their weapons passed through him like wind through water. They could not touch him, not because of shields, but because he no longer belonged to their version of reality. He had become something else. He had become the choice they feared. Kaeli stood at his side, hands glowing bright as stars. Her voice grew louder, and the symbols in the sky responded. Planets aligned. A ripple spread across the galactic web. Those sensitive to ancient truths began to feel it, even from distant corners of the galaxy. What is that? Asked a pilot near the star system of Oran-X. His co-pilot stared at the glowing wave on the scanner. I don't know, he said slowly, but it feels like hope. With one final motion, Elian raised the blade high. The sky cracked open. The temple roared, and the Watchers screamed. Then silenced. The figure of darkness dissolved into dust, blown away by wind that carried not destruction, but truth. The Watchers were gone. The cycle was broken. Kaeli fell to her knees, exhausted. Elian caught her before she hit the ground. She looked up at him, her face glowing with both joy and sorrow. You stayed. He nodded. I made a promise, remember? Yes, she whispered. And I came back to keep mine. They held each other as the suns rose once more over Solara Prime, this time shining on a world that would never be forgotten again. But far above, in the dark edges of the universe, something else stirred. Watching. Not VEHL and something older. Something that had also remembered. The twin suns of Solara Prime cast golden light over the valley as peace settled like dust after a storm. The sky was quiet now. The Watchers were gone, their ships erased, their dark presence lifted. The ruins of the temple stood proud, no longer buried in shame or silence. Every stone whispered truth again. But inside Elian, something stirred. As he stood beside Kaeli, watching her rest on a bench of smooth stone, a memory kept playing in his mind, not one he lived, but one he had felt. A future not yet written. A voice calling his name from beyond even this victory. You okay? Kaeli asked softly. He nodded, then looked out over the hills. It doesn't feel over. Kaeli followed his gaze. Because it isn't. He turned to her. You said something was watching. Something older. What is it? She hesitated, then stood, brushing dust from her robe. Before the temple was built, before the Ilrea ever learned to speak, there were voices in the stars, creators, keepers, not gods, not machines, something else. Elian frowned. They made the temple? No, she said. They made us. Her words hung in the air like thunder, and they made the Watchers too. To erase what they called broken timelines. Truths that were unfit. They didn't see us as people. Just threads to cut. Elian stepped closer. Then why let us return now? Kelly's voice dropped. They didn't. That night, Elian dreamed again. In the dream, he stood on the edge of a giant void, stars swirling below. A figure stood across from him, tall, faceless, cloaked in nebula. You broke the pattern. It said. You forced it, Elian replied. The figure said nothing. Elian pointed at it. I chose to love, to remember, to protect. You tried to erase that. You were not meant to return. Then maybe your design is broken. The stars behind the figure began to crack. Your choice, the voice said, has started something new. We will watch, and we will wait. Elian woke up sweating. Kaeli sat beside him, a worried look on her face. You saw it too, didn't you? She asked. He nodded. They're not done. No, she said. But they can't control. US anymore. They stood together and stepped outside. In the sky above, thousands of small lights moved in unison. Ships, not warships, vessels of many kinds, many races. Word had spread. The wave of memory released by the temple had reached across the stars. People had come not to conquer, to remember. Kaeli turned to Elian. This began with a promise, in the dust, and a quiet voice. He smiled. I remember. She held out her hand. He took it. So what happens now? He asked. Kaeli looked up at the sky. We rebuild, she said. We teach. We protect others. Like we were once protected. Elian nodded slowly. And if they return? Kaeli looked at him with quiet strength. Then they'll learn the truth. What truth? She smiled. That even the stars can't silence a promise kept. Years later, the place where the temple once stood had become a sanctuary, a place where memory was sacred. Humans, Elria, and dozens of other races lived and worked together. They called it the Vowlight. Children ran through its gardens, learning stories of how one girl returned and how one human kept his word. Deep in its heart stood a monument, not of war, but of choice. It showed a human hand and an Elria hand, fingers interlocked, lit from within by a crystal flame that never died, and under it were 5 words. We remembered, and we stayed. Asterisk, asterisk, but in the cold reaches of space, one last watcher stirred, and blinked. And for the first time, it hesitated.